My brother stole my savings while I worked 60-hour weeks, so I took back what was mine and cut him off forever. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one in my family, the one who cleaned up the messes, fixed the problems, and swallowed his frustration so everyone else could breathe easier. My younger brother, Aaron, was always the opposite. Lazy, reckless, impulsive, yet somehow endlessly forgiven. He's just misunderstood, my mother would sigh, looking at me like I owed her agreement. You know he doesn't think like you do. I worked brutal 60-hour weeks, sometimes more, dragging myself home with aching shoulders and hands that smelled of metal and sweat, only to be met with another quiet request. Can you spot him a little cash? He messed up again. My father would say it carefully, like a warning disguised as a favor. I'd glance at my brother slouched on the couch, scrolling on his phone, and he'd mutter, "I'll pay you back, man." Just, this once. This once became every week. I covered his phone bill when he forgot to pay, his car insurance when he spent rent money on sneakers, and even his late fees when he dropped out of another course. Each time, my parents praised me for stepping up. "You're the strong one. You can handle it," they said, like strength meant carrying emotional weight until your spine cracked. Inside, I kept telling myself this was what loyalty looked like. Family meant sacrifice. Blood came before comfort. Yet at night, lying in my dim bedroom with the fan humming softly and my bank app open, I'd stare at the numbers dipping lower and feel something tight knot in my chest. A quiet voice I refused to listen to whispered, "Why is this always your responsibility?" Still, I silenced it. One evening, as I handed Aaron another envelope of cash, he barely looked at me. "Don't worry, bro, Mom said you always come through." The way he said it felt less like gratitude and more like expectation. And my mother just smiled softly from the kitchen doorway, as if this imbalance was perfectly normal. I swallowed the uneasy feeling rising in my throat and told myself I was doing the right thing. But as I turned away, my brother's unreadable expression lingered in my mind, and that was the first time I wondered if my loyalty wasn't strength at all, but a vulnerability someone was learning how to use. I'm a 27-year-old guy who spent years building a private savings fund so quietly that even my own reflection barely felt ownership over it. Every extra dollar came from overtime shifts, skipped lunches, canceled weekends, and nights when my body screamed for rest but my mind kept whispering, "Just one more hour." That account wasn't just money to me, it was proof that my pain meant something. My future apartment, my freedom, my chance to finally breathe without guilt. It was the only thing in my life that felt purely mine. Then Aaron started noticing. At first it was casual. "So, how you been managing financially, bro?" he'd ask, leaning against my bedroom doorway like he was genuinely curious. His tone was light, almost friendly, but his eyes lingered too long. My parents picked up on it quickly. "It's good you're disciplined," my mom said one evening while stirring soup, glancing between us. "Maybe you could teach your brother how to save too." A week later, his car broke down. Again. "I'm screwed," Aaron muttered, pacing the living room. "If I don't fix it, I can't get to work. I'll lose the job." My father folded his arms and looked at me. "You've always managed well. Just this once. Help him get back on his feet." My heart tightened. "I don't know. I've been saving for something important." "Are you really going to let your brother fall apart over money?" my mother snapped, disappointment heavy in her voice. "We raised you better than that." Aaron sighed dramatically. "I'll pay you back, man. You know that. Just a small loan. I swear. A small loan." That's what I told myself as I opened my banking app late that night, the blue glow of the screen reflecting off the tired lines under my eyes. My thumb hovered over the transfer button, and a strange dread crawled under my skin. Still, I pressed confirm. Transaction successful. Almost immediately, a message from Aaron popped up. "You saved my life, bro, seriously." I sat there in the quiet, listening to the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant creak of the floorboards, convincing myself I had just prevented a family meltdown. But deep inside, something whispered that this wasn't relief. It felt like the first crack in something I'd spent years trying to protect. I'm a 27-year-old guy who woke up one morning, opened my banking app, and felt my stomach drop so hard it knocked the air from my lungs. The number on the screen didn't match what I knew was there. I refreshed it. Again. And again. Another withdrawal I didn't recognize sat under the last one like a quiet accusation. My heart started pounding in my ears, that dull thudding sound mixing with the hum of the ceiling fan above me. "No, this has to be a glitch," I whispered, scrolling through the transaction history with trembling fingers. The amounts weren't small either. They were precise. Intentional. I called Aaron immediately. No answer. Straight to voicemail. I tried again and again until my phone screen felt warm in my palm. Nothing. So I went to my parents. "Someone's taking money from my account," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's disappearing, and I didn't authorize anything." My mom barely looked up from her chopping board. "You're stressed. You work too much. You probably forgot what you spent." "I didn't forget," I snapped, the edge in my voice sharper than I meant. "This isn't normal." My father sighed like I was exhausting him. "You're being dramatic. Family money isn't individual money. We all help each other when someone needs it." The words felt rehearsed. Too smooth. Too defensive. So who needs it this badly? I pressed, eyes instinctively flicking toward the hallway that led to Aaron's room. "He's going through a tough phase," my mom murmured. "Be patient. You always overthink things." Overthink. Paranoid. Controlling. The labels stacked up against me until I felt like I was suffocating in my own home. Every conversation ended the same way, my concerns softened into guilt, my fear rewritten as selfishness. That night, I lay in bed staring at the cracked paint on the ceiling, the faint smell of detergent still clinging to my sheets, and watched another alert flash across my phone. Withdrawal completed. My chest tightened so painfully I had to sit up just to breathe. And as I finally noticed the small reference code attached to the transaction, a name I didn't expect to see linked to my money, I realized this wasn't just careless borrowing. Something far worse was happening behind my back, and it had already gone too far. I'm a 27-year-old guy who finally uncovered the truth I had been dreading and somehow still wasn't ready for. After another night of restless panic, I drove straight to the bank, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly they ached. The fluorescent lights inside buzzed above me as the teller pulled up my account history, quietly explaining that the withdrawals were authorized using security answers tied to personal family details. My mother's maiden name. Our childhood street. My brother's birthday. Aaron. The proof sat there in black and white, cold and undeniable. Charges for designer clothes, high-end headphones, weekend hotel bookings, and restaurants I'd never even dare step into. My savings, my future, turned into his luxury fantasy. The air felt thin, my chest hollowing as the realization sank deep into my bones. When I confronted him that night, his face didn't even flinch. "You went into my account," I hissed, shoving my phone toward him. "You stole everything I worked for." He scoffed. "Relax. You have money. You always have money. That wasn't yours to touch." He shrugged, spinning a car key around his finger. "Maybe I deserved it more. You're always acting like some martyr anyway." The words hit harder than the theft itself. My parents stepped in immediately, not to stop him, but to soften me. "He's struggling emotionally," my mother argued, desperation creeping into her voice. "You know he's sensitive. You're stronger. You can handle this. So stealing from me is okay because I'm strong?" I demanded. My father's jaw tightened. "You're turning this into a war. He didn't mean harm. You're shaming your own brother." The room felt unreal, like I was standing on shifting ground while everyone else clung to a lie that protected him. Aaron smirked faintly. "You're overreacting, man. It'll blow over." And in that moment, something twisted painfully inside me. I wasn't the victim in their eyes. I'm a 27-year-old guy who got told, flat to my face, that I was selfish for even feeling hurt. The word stung worse than the theft itself. You're acting like money matters more than family, my mother said, her voice sharp and wounded, as if I had betrayed them. The kitchen smelled faintly of garlic and burnt oil, but I could barely breathe through the tight pressure choking my chest. I didn't give him permission, I tried to explain, my hands trembling. I'm a 27-year-old guy who stumbled into a truth so cruel it felt like my lungs forgot how to function. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I was just walking past the living room late one night, the hallway dim and the floor cool beneath my bare feet, when I heard my name whispered like something shameful. He deserved it, my mother murmured. He's always had more opportunities, my father replied quietly. It's only fair Aaron gets compensation. I froze. Compensation, my brother muttered, amused. You mean the money? Yes, my mother said calmly, as if she were discussing groceries. He's the successful one. He can afford to lose a little. You've always struggled. It evens things out. My hands clenched into fists as heat rushed to my face. They encouraged him. They didn't just forgive the theft, they orchestrated it. So you told him to take it? I whispered from the doorway, voice hoarse and shaking. The room went silent. My mother's eyes widened, my father stiffened, and Aaron's smirk never faded. You weren't meant to hear that, my dad said after a pause, tone clipped and guarded. You planned this? I choked out. You decided my savings were his reward for being a failure? He's fragile, my mom insisted, desperation creeping into every word. You're mentally stronger. You don't understand how much pressure he's under. The air felt thick, heavy with something rotten I hadn't fully grasped until now. I wasn't just exploited, I was assigned the role of family sacrifice. The dependable scapegoat who existed so someone else could feel less inadequate. All those nights. The overtime. The isolation. It wasn't love they saw in me. It was resource. Aaron leaned back lazily. See? This wasn't even my idea. I just took what your money always was, family property. Family property. My chest tightened, sharp pain radiating through every breath, vision blurring as the gravity of it crushed my sense of reality. I felt small. Disposable. Rewritten without consent. And as their voices continued to justify the unthinkable, logic faded beneath the raw devastation curling around my spine. Because in that moment, I finally understood the truth: I was never the son they loved. I was just the one they planned to break. I'm a 27-year-old guy who stopped sleeping like sleep was a luxury I no longer deserved. Nights blurred into mornings as I lay staring at the cracked ceiling, the faint buzz of the streetlight slipping through my curtains and painting dull stripes across my wall. Every time I closed my eyes, their voices echoed again: compensation, family property, he can afford to lose it. My chest felt permanently hollow, like something important had been carved out and tossed aside without ceremony. Food lost its taste. Hunger felt irrelevant. The mirror stopped looking like me. At work, my hands moved slower, my focus shattered into fragments. You okay, man? My coworker asked one afternoon, his voice muffled through the fog in my head. Yeah. Just tired, I muttered, pretending not to notice the concern in his eyes. The truth was heavier, my mind replayed every insult, every manipulation, until even the sound of typing keys felt like accusation. I stopped answering friends. Stopped replying to messages. My phone sat silent except for the occasional text from my mother: you need to calm down. You're acting childish. Aaron's came less often. One time it simply read: don't make this weird. It's over. Over. As if betrayal came with an expiration date. All that remained inside me was humiliation, a slow, burning shame that crawled under my skin and refused to let go. I felt weak for caring. Weak for trusting. Weak for thinking loyalty meant something other than self-destruction. Even childhood memories, once warm and steady, now felt infected, like every smile held a hidden transaction behind it. I caught myself whispering questions into the quiet. Was I always this naive? Did I earn this somehow? The silence never answered. One night, sitting in the dark with my back against the bed frame, the faint smell of dust and old laundry hanging in the air, I pressed my palms into my eyes just to stop the swirl of images tearing through my mind. My breathing felt shallow, uneven, as if peace was something reserved for people who weren't me. And as I'm a 27-year-old guy who finally stopped pleading and started calculating. After months of sleepless nights, spiraling rage, and humiliation that gnawed at every fiber of me, something shifted. It wasn't sudden, not like flipping a switch, it was quiet, almost imperceptible at first, like the slow thaw of ice that had trapped my heart for years. The begging, the justifying, the attempts to explain myself, they all stopped. I realized that emotional outbursts were wasted energy against a family that had already decided I was disposable. I retreated into silence, not the hollow kind I'd curled into before, but the focused, observant kind. Every conversation, every interaction, I absorbed like data. I documented everything: withdrawals, dates, transactions, text messages, overheard conversations, patterns of manipulation. My notebook, my phone, my brain all became repositories of evidence, each line a brick building toward understanding. Aaron would smirk, thinking I was defeated. My parents would lecture me, thinking they had succeeded in crushing my spirit. But inside, I was calm. Detached. The chaos of betrayal no longer dictated my pulse or my reactions. I began watching them instead of being watched. I began analyzing instead of pleading. Their predictability became my advantage. For the first time in months, clarity returned. Not warmth, not relief, just a cold, piercing lucidity that allowed me to see exactly who I was dealing with. Every slight, every manipulation, every casual betrayal fit into a pattern I could finally understand. The emotional fog lifted, revealing the mechanics of exploitation I'd been trapped in. I felt strength growing in that clarity. Not the hollow, responsible one strength that demanded endless sacrifice, but a deliberate, measured kind. A kind that could endure without crumbling. A kind that could observe, wait, and act. By the end of the night, I realized I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I was calculating. I was strategizing. I was ready. And in that quiet, dimly lit room, with the hum of my laptop and the faint scent of coffee lingering, cold resolve replaced the raw pain that had ruled me for months. I was no longer a victim. I was preparing to reclaim control, silently, methodically, and without mercy. I'm a 27-year-old guy who hit my emotional rock bottom in front of people I thought would never see me this broken. It happened at a small gathering a mutual friend hosted, the kind of casual night where laughter floated through the air and cheap drinks lined the counter. I almost didn't go, but part of me clung to the idea that being around others might make me feel normal again. Then Aaron arrived. He walked in like a king stepping into his courtroom, eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. A slow grin crept across his face. "So," he announced loudly, voice dripping with mockery, "how's it feel knowing family always sides with blood, not money?" The room went quiet. I felt every stare burn into my skin as my stomach twisted. "Seriously, man?" I muttered, trying to keep my voice steady. He laughed. "What? Just telling the truth. You thought a few dollars mattered more than loyalty?" A few people chuckled awkwardly. Someone shifted uncomfortably, but no one stopped him. No one defended me. "You should have known better," he went on, sipping his drink casually. "You don't get to act like the victim just because you didn't get your way." My throat tightened so hard I could barely swallow. I searched the room for familiar faces, people who once praised my work ethic, who called me reliable, who trusted me. They avoided my eyes. Conversations shifted. Phones came out. It was as if keeping distance from my disgrace made them safer. The betrayal had evolved into spectacle. By the time I stepped outside, the chilled night air cutting sharply against my flushed skin, I realized something horrifyingly clear. I wasn't just losing my family. I was losing my social world too. My support. My place. My sense of belonging. Every space I once felt stable and now felt hostile. Standing alone under the flickering streetlight, the distant noise of laughter echoing behind me, a heavy silence filled the gap inside my chest. My hands trembled, and a dull pressure spread through my skull like a tide of shame and exhaustion. I had protected everyone but myself. And as the weight of that realization crushed whatever strength I had left, I wondered, not for the first time, if there was anything left of me that deserved to be saved. I'm a 27-year-old guy who decided the time for silent observation was over. Months of documenting transactions, messages, overheard conversations, and patterns of manipulation had built an irrefutable case. And tonight, during a casual family dinner, I chose to unleash it. The air smelled faintly of roasted chicken and stale candles, the kind of domestic comfort I had once taken for granted. Now it felt like the perfect stage. I cleared my throat and placed a neatly stacked folder in the center of the table. "I think it's time we went through this," I said, calm, controlled. The usual hum of conversation faded. Forks paused midair. Glasses clinked softly. Eyes, wide and unsettled, turned toward me. I opened the folder and began, methodically, showing withdrawals, dates, and timestamps, cross-referenced with text messages and bank alerts. Each proof I presented punctured their carefully crafted narrative. My voice didn't waver, it was deliberate, precise, almost clinical. The room went silent as my parents' faces shifted from shock to flustered defensiveness. It's not what it looks like," my mother stammered, her hands trembling over the tablecloth. "Your brother, he didn't mean," my father began, only to stop as I laid out the final piece, his own admission in text, laughing about taking what was owed to him. Aaron's smirk faltered. His fingers fumbled with his napkin. He started, then stopped. Panic replaced bravado. He could no longer hide behind rehearsed excuses. Every lie unraveled in real time, thread by thread, until the entire tapestry of deception lay exposed before us. The warmth of fear and realization spread across their faces, mirrored by the quiet awe of distant relatives watching from the living room. I took a deep breath, letting the silence stretch, savoring the weight shift. For the first time in months, I felt my power return, not through anger, not through confrontation itself, but through clarity and control. The family that had treated me as disposable now had to face the undeniable truth. The one they had tried to break had emerged stronger and unyielding. As the murmurs began, the heavy atmosphere hanging like fog over the table, I finally understood the moment. Control was mine again, subtle, quiet, absolute. And this time, no one could take it back. I'm a 27-year-old guy who finally decided there would be no more second chances. After months of calculating, documenting, and exposing the truth, I filed legal action not out of revenge, but as a boundary, a declaration that I would no longer be anyone's safety net or scapegoat. The process was clinical, almost antiseptic, but each signature I added to the papers felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I had thought lost forever. I blocked every number, deleted every email thread, and unfollowed every social media account tied to them. My phone went quiet. No notifications, no casual pleas, no manipulative messages disguised as concern. The silence was overwhelming at first, but it quickly became a balm I hadn't realized I needed. Every echo of their attempts to reach me vanished, leaving only the space I had earned with sweat, tears, and unrelenting patience. Their apologies trickled in later, sudden and hollow. "We didn't know, we're sorry, it won't happen again," they were words without substance, as empty as the promises they had broken for years. I read a few, then deleted the rest. Their guilt no longer held any power over me. Walking away that day, I didn't glance back. The hallway, the living room, the familiar creak of the stairs, all of it belonged to them, along with the chaos they had created. I carried nothing but my clarity, my hard-earned peace, and the quiet pride of knowing I had stood firm when it mattered most. Every step felt lighter. Every breath, freer. My silence became my shield, my statement, my power. No confrontation, no dramatics, just a calm assertion that I would no longer be complicit in their manipulation. And as I closed the door behind me for the final time, the weight of years lifted from my shoulders. The severance wasn't just legal or physical, it was emotional, mental, and complete. I had lost nothing that mattered. In fact, I had gained everything: freedom, control, and the quiet knowledge that loyalty to myself would always outweigh loyalty to those who had never valued it. I'm a 27-year-old guy who finally began rebuilding my life on my own terms, brick by brick, with the clarity I had fought so hard to reclaim. The weeks after the severance felt strange at first, quiet, almost disorienting, but gradually, that silence became my canvas. I filled it with routines I actually wanted, goals I had postponed, and the kind of self-respect that no one could take away. Each morning, I woke without dread. The suffocating weight of manipulation, expectation, and betrayal had lifted, leaving only space for purpose. I focused on work, on projects that mattered to me, and on relationships that nourished rather than drained. My brother, once the center of my worry and financial strain, faded into irrelevance. His laughter, his demands, his entitlement, they became echoes of a life I no longer belonged to. I learned to enjoy small victories again, a weekend spent without anxiety, a paycheck that stayed in my account, the freedom to make decisions without consulting anyone else. Each step forward reinforced the lesson that my strength wasn't just resilience, it was a legacy. It was proof that even after years of being exploited, silenced, and gaslit, I could reclaim control of my life and my identity. I no longer chased validation. I didn't need anyone's approval to feel worthy. The approval I once sought from my parents, my brother, even my friends, was replaced by a quiet confidence that came from knowing my own value. I had survived the worst, and now I thrived. Standing on my balcony one evening, watching the city lights flicker and pulse like a heartbeat beneath me, I felt it fully, peace. Not the fragile peace that comes from avoiding confrontation, but the kind that blooms from truth, justice, and personal empowerment. I had been broken, betrayed, and silenced. But I had walked through it all, and on the other side, I found independence, clarity, and quiet triumph. For the first time in my life, I was fully free, and I knew I would never allow anyone to take that from me again.